Okay, I just wanted to let y'all know that I used this pattern, 9102, and all I wanted was the shape of the top. It's a fall off the shoulder, no seam sleeve. And so I traced the back of the bodice, which I made sure is very similar to the front. There wasn't any major measurement differences. So this is the back of the bodice. Hold with me. What I want to do is I want to take this sleeveless piece and I want to cut it off on the sides like this. Front and back. I'm going to this is the only part I want to use of this shirt. And I want to extend the shirt using this piece first. I'm going to use our green shirt, our linen shirt, to make this portion of the shirt. So we're going to need to make sure that it will fit on this part, and I'm hoping, so we're not going to need, let's see how much we're going to need of it. We're going to need, I want to use the seam the neckline we've got there on the piece. So let's just kind of give it a rough draft. And say, you know, somewhere in there is where we want to use the green part. So let's see if we can hold it. All right. Yeah. That way, if you were to look at it this way, we would just be continuing the shirt with this part. All right, so let's see if we've got enough of this fabric in this extra large linen shirt to do 2 of those. 1 for each side, obviously. And I think we'll have plenty enough in the sides. So this would be, obviously this is the neckline up here, and we would have plenty enough to do 2 of these for the sides. So that's where we're going with the green and the white. Now the yellow, I'm going to cut this piece, and it's not going to go all the way down the white blouse as you saw. It's only going to go about this far, and I might not even go that far. I might cinch it up just a little here, because at the bottom I want to put a yellow panel on the side that's gathered kind of like a peplum. So I swear it's going to come together. But the first thing we need to do is cut up this green shirt and see what we've got for fabric, and make sure we've got enough for the piece we want. Okay, I've cut out the arm that's going to be extending the top of the shirt, And this is the dress that is in just the lace left. I took all the lining out of it. So if I take it and I just fold it in half, that gives me an idea of how much fabric I have to work with. And I'm actually only going to need about, maybe about that much. So you see I'll have a little extension over here to get a little gather out of it. It won't be a huge gather, but it'll be a soft gather on the side of the shirt. So, and this of course won't be here. So is that easier to see now? Maybe visualize? So I need to cut this in the full length as I can to mate up with this piece and gather it. And I may put a piece of the lining fabric behind the top when I'm gathering it, just to make sure I've got something to gather too, you know, properly at least. So now we just got to decide again how much of this we're going to need. And I know I'm going to need to meet that and meet that end down there. So we're going to have to be pretty good with the measurement there. Okay, the first thing I think we need to do, with this white top that's going to be our centerpiece is to cut down the sides so we get a flat piece. This has got darts in it and all kinds of stuff, makes it a little hard to just run through on the sides. Now you could just take a straight ruler and run down, but I want to get a little flatter side. I have pinned the center. I might not need that right now, but I went ahead and pinned the center so we could see where we wanted to make sure it was centered on that zipper. Okay, we have the two sides, front and back, cut apart, and I've pinned it in some strategic places at the hemline to make sure that those meet, down the zipper to make sure it's meeting in the middle of the blouse, and then also I've pinned the shoulders here on the seam because I want to make sure that they stay straight as well. I am going to use my zipper as a gauge to make sure it's straight, or as straight as it can be, with my ruler here. It looks pretty straight. The eyelet is a little off, so I'm just gauging this part, which is about an inch away from there. Let's see, I pulled out the old rotary cutter. Let's see if it cuts better. Okay, if my math is correct, my math would say that this side from shoulder to hem is 24.5 inches. And I have 14 inches worth of green for the top that actually is excluding an inch for a half inch at the shoulder and a half inch to connect it to the yellow. So that leaves me with 10.5 inches I need. And I need to add a half inch to it for seam allowance, so I need 11 inches of the yellow for the bottom of the shirt. Now I've folded it in half and then in half again just to make it easier to cut. And I am going to cut it 11 inches long right here. Make sure I get it right, because I only have one. That's the thing about upcycling. It has to be inexpensive because you don't usually get a second chance. So this is my bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it into two pieces. So in order to do that, I am going to cut it down the side. Now I know that leaves a seam in each one of the pieces, but that's okay. We're good with that because we want to make sure we have enough fabric on both sides. So let me cut that, and then we'll get to piecing things together. Okay, we have all of our pieces cut out. The middle piece, the two sleeve sides, and the bottom that's going to go below this as the bottom block. Now, I did serge around, I think I already said, around the linen piece and on the edge of this piece, just to make sure we don't get any ravels. I'm not too worried about the lace, but it does give it a nice finished edge. And I'm going to serge all the way down this open seam as well because it's got that lining behind it. I just don't want it to move, so I will serge that shortly. What I was concerned with, I wanted to show you, was finishing the edge of this sleeve. I don't want to just hem it. I want kind of an edge to it. Now we had some leftover pieces of the shirt, and I was able to get these 12 by 2 pieces. This is 11 inches here, so I got 12 by 2 pieces. And what I want to do, they're not going to be big. Now, if you have more, that'd be great because it'd be cute with a larger cuff, but we're going to do what we can. So I'm going to fold them in half, and I'm going to put them right sides together, sew down that seam, and then turn them out like this and put a nice top stitch on that to hold that seam in place. And it'll just give it a nice finished edge without having to do a lot of work. First things first though, we're going to go sew this top seam. We're going to go seam 2 of these together for each side. So 2 and 2. And then we're going to put them on all the way around the edge before we sew this seam under the arm. Once we do that, the only thing we're going to do is attach this before we put it all together. Okay, I have sewn the 2 pieces together for each sleeve, and I folded them in half, opened up that seam first and folded it in half. Don't want that seam to be super bulky, so we're ready to attach them to the sleeves. I also went ahead and put in, this is the shoulder seam on each of the sleeves. So we're ready to attach the eyelet cuff to this portion from under the arm over the shoulder. So we're going to match up our shoulder seams, and we're doing it right sides together. So make sure I'm doing it from the right side there. And we're just going to pin it on here, again matching that center seam for our shoulder. And we're going to sew down the edge here. I might follow as close to the serge line as I can because I don't really need a whole 1/2 inch seam allowance. I just need to make sure this 1/2 inch seam allowance is adhered to for the parts that attach to each other. So once I get this done, then I'll turn it out and top stitch over that seam to make sure it doesn't move. Okay, we've got the sides or the cuff of the sleeve attached, and I've ironed it to make sure it's nice and pressed this way. I'm going to do a top stitch here along this line just to make sure that this stays secure, and I think it'll give it a nice neat look. So it won't give me trouble when I'm inevitably ironing it, because it's linen. But I do like working with linen. We have the cuffs on, and we have them stitched down with the top stitching. Turned out rather nice. I did go ahead and stitch down the shoulder seams too, just to secure that inside, make it look professional, you know, that kind of thing. So now we just need to trim off the excess down here where we had gone over. I just wasn't worried about the exact measurement since we were going to be seaming this underarm seam. So I'm just going to go and trim these. Let me get my good scissors. I'm going to trim this, and then we're going to turn them right sides together like that, and we're going to sew that short arm seam. That's the underarm seam. And once we do that, we'll go over and figure out how we're attaching the yellow. Okay, it's time to attach our yellow block to our green sleeve, or aqua or teal, or whatever we're going with color-wise. And what I found is it's not a lot of fabric, and not enough that I would concern myself with gathering. So I'm going to turn this right side out. So I don't want to gather it, not to mention gathering lace is kind of a booger unless you have something to stabilize it. So what I did is I pinned this center seam with this center seam first, like so. And then I pinned the ends like so. And I kind of gauged 3 little pleats in the shirt closest to the seam, because I figured you kind of wanted it puff at the seam, not at the front or the back. So I just, and you got to remember which direction your pleat's going to go in. So I just did these little pleats, and honestly, you could use a hemming ruler for this if you wanted to. I just used pretty much my fingernail, pushed it in, went down probably a little bit, like an inch, maybe less, pushed in a second one, and then came down here another inch and pushed in a third one. Now I need to make these a little bigger. The other ones are a little bigger. You kind of have to work with it because you're making this up as you go. So, but work with your pleat, or you can gather if you want. If you've got enough fabric in this, whatever you've chosen to do this with, by all means, gather if you want. Add elastic if you want to make it even easier to gather. That's fine too. I like to do little pleats. I think I need a little more on that one. There we go. And it makes it simpler. You do have to do some eyeballing, but that's not bad. Like that. And there we go. Now, I have my 3 pleats on one side. Go like that. You see? And now I'm going to put them on the other side. And then I'm going to just go sew them down. And the last thing we got to do is attach both sides to the inner circle, or the inner shirt. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I wanted to show y'all. I have got both the yellow and the green together right here, and it's one big piece, so I have pinned it inside. This is the, the middle part, and I've turned it right side in or wrong side out, and I'm pinning the right sides together. So this is the right side of the side piece, and I'm just pinning it all the way around. And oddly enough, our math came out right. So it's pretty spot on. The lace gives me a little leeway. If it wasn't, it'll stretch a little bit, but I don't need to. So I'm going to sew from one hemline over here all the way up over the shoulder and down to this hemline. And we're going to do that on both sides, and that should complete our shirt. Fingers crossed. Okay, everybody, here's my new summer shirt. I think it turned out really cute. It was a good way to upcycle and recycle some clothes that weren't going to be doing so well otherwise. Had some stains, that kind of thing. So if you want to make one, the trick is getting the math right. And that's making sure that you've got a piece that's going to cover this side. So that's the only tricky part, or, well, not for everybody, but for me. So I will try to include something in the description that helps with that. And I hope y'all had a good time. If you like this kind of content, by all means, subscribe. Let me know what you think, and I will catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.